Okay. So we were saying is that Iron Safe is down here all the way to the highest, it's all the way to the lowest of lows. Everywhere you find you are, that's where Hashem is, right? Wherever you're gonna go, that's where Hashem is. And you have a powerful tool from that. The powerful tool is that whatever you're going through, that's Hashem. And being that's Hashem, it's meant to be there. And he gives you the tools and what it takes to handle it. And um, and not only that, you could find instructions. Being that Hashem's training, He creates it through the Torah. You can find instructions in the Torah how to deal with it. And then we have to say, is this year's Basi Legani? The evidence doesn't only say it's if it exists, it's from God. Rather, if it exists, godliness could be revealed. There's oil there, and that's obviously as you process your struggles, as you process the God gifted, specially crafted for you, challenges, you'll find godliness in there. So the Rebbe goes into there's a whole bunch of things going on here, but something really interesting the Rebbe brings down here is there's a line in Pirkei Avos. There's a line in Pirkei Avos that goes like this: he who seeks fame will lose his name, right? He who seeks fame will lose his name. In other words, someone who's trying to become famous, someone who's trying to become known, he's going to lose. People are not going to respect him. From a practical side, he's probably not going to have integrity. He's probably going to not be really in tune with himself, and therefore he's probably going to, he's probably not going to have good interactions. There's many deeper levels going on in here. You're trying to search your name. Are you including God in your big plan of fame? No. And so what happens is, so what happens is so the Maggid has an interesting twist on this. The Maggid has an interesting twist. He says the Eivishter, in order to make his name, first destroyed his name. What does that mean? That's a big statement. In order to make his name, he ruined his name. Flip the Torah on its head. Normally, this line is, if you pursue a big name, you lose your name. Here, in order to have his name, he destroyed his name. So I'll first use practical Hasidic terms, the Kabbalah terms, which is basically Hashem has a Shem Havaya, Shem Elokim, and in order to be known, he has to go through many tzimtzumim. And by the time he's on the tzimtzumim, we don't really know Hashem. I'm saying, in other words, we experience random parts that we don't really associate with Hashem until we go through a lot of avodah, a lot of hardships, a lot of growth, and then we're like, oh, that is God, right? So in other words, what does it mean? He loses his name in order to gain his name. He went through many tzimtzumim. But what's interesting is the terms he uses in the Maimer, which obviously probably the Maggid uses, is he says the Eibishter lost his shame. The Eibishter lost his shame, and instead was known by Kinuyim. What does it mean instead he was known by Kinuyim? So like this. A Kinuy is a description. A shame is a name / a role. In other words, my kids call me father. That's my role to them. I'm a son to my parents. That's my role. I'm a teacher to some. I'm a friend to others. I have different roles I play, right? Kinuyim is descriptions. People will describe certain roles, like I'm kind. That's not who I am. That's not the role I'm playing. That's what's coming out of me. So, for example, in Shemon Esrei, we call Hashem Hagadol, Hagibar, Vaneira. In fact, you're not allowed to add descriptions to Hashem, being that certain entire, we use these descriptions, right? We can describe Hashem as Gadol, great, Hagibar, Vaneira. And these are things that we see in Hashem. You'll see the way people talk about God. They'll have God is loving, God is very strict, God is very vengeful, God is very endearing. People have different descriptions, and they're getting to experience Hashem. But in some ways, they don't fully understand Hashem's role in the world. In other words, they don't appreciate Havaya, they don't appreciate Elokim. But why does Hashem do this? Hashem does this so you have a relationship with us. Hashem is okay with just people having kinuyim for him, just having descriptions. God is loving, God is kind, God is punishing, God is strict. Because through having these tzimtzumim where Hashem is not fully known, people can have a relationship with Hashem, and then they really get to know Him. They really get to experience Hashem, right? So he ruins his name. He goes through many tzimtzumim, and all what's left is a whole bunch of descriptions describing the way Hashem's behaving in our life. Why? Because slowly we can have a deep connections with Hashem's essence. Now, everything we're supposed to learn from. And what is the lesson for us? The lesson for us is we're going to be pursuing our name by holding onto our role. I'm a father. I'm a this. I'm a that. Our interactions are probably going to be very uncomfortable. And we're probably going to lose that role. The people that we're supposed to be that role in their life to are probably not going to let us play that anymore because they're going to be stepping out or pushing back. Versus if we're okay with losing our role by coming across as kind, coming across as strict. In other words, doing what it takes for the other person. We're going to actually start having a deep, deep connection with them. We're going to have a connection with our real self. I was actually coaching somebody, and he was describing he got a brach from the Rebbe to maybe move on jobs. And I asked him, what's the feeling? It's kind of like the Rebbe saying is maybe it's time to move on. So he's like, maybe it's unearthing. It's like, pulling the carpet. I said, maybe let's look at this like the Rebbe is giving you permission. The Rebbe is holding you and saying is this role that you've been playing for many years is not you. It's a role you're playing. And you play powerfully. You've been giving of yourself so much that people even forgot that this is your role. They connect to your essence. But you've been holding on to that. This is your identity. And they're saying is, no, you're great in this. This is one of the roles you play in the world. And he's giving you permission to step past that, to step into a higher place and be yourself. Oh, what is myself? This is who I am. This is my job. This is my shlichus. Yeah. And the Rebbe saying is, that potentially was your shlichus. And you continue doing what is important. And you might lose this role. But people are going to connect with you. You're going to connect with yourself. Right? So just to bring it all together. The Maggid took the Pirkei of his famous quote of, you pursue your name, you'll lose your name. And he says, flip it on its head. Hashem ruined his name in order to have a name. What does that mean? He went through a whole bunch of tzimtzumim in order to be known. Starting off with just being known as character traits. He's kind, hagadol, hagibar, and eventually through being experienced at that level, we're able to reach Hashem's essence. Same to us. If we want to have our essence revealed, if we want to give over who we really are, we can't hold onto our role, hold onto our shame. We have to just start doing what's needed. I'm going to be known as different community. People are going, oh, he's a kind guy, he's a loud guy, he's a quiet. Whatever, that's what's needed. Before we know it, we're going to be giving over our essence to people. And the biggest gift, we're going to have our essence, which just leads into the next thing. Oh, no, it doesn't. It leads into later on in the Maimon. The next thing is something really interesting. So Rebbe goes on to, he's explaining iron stuff. This is a very insightful mimer, and there's so many layers. Just something I'm not going to touch. But in this mimer, I found out that there's 3 different opinions in Kabbalah of what Atzilus is. And turns out that those 3 opinions turn into a whole bunch of more opinions. And the Tzemach Tzedek has a mimer explaining the 3 different opinions of what Atzilus is and whatever. That was like a really cool fact because we're constantly hearing Atzilus back and forth, and it's all relative. it's all relative to where you're standing. But the Rebbe goes on to say is one of the things about Iron Sight is it's never changing. It's super interactive in the whole world. It's affecting everything. It's Oyer, it's Gilu, it's revealing, it's influential. And at the same time, it never changes. So the Rebbe goes on to explain, example of this is Yosef HaTzadik. Yosef HaTzadik was able to be involved in the whole entire world and not change. It wasn't that he was involved in the whole entire world and he was so strong, he didn't give in to any Yetzer Hara. No, he didn't even have a Yetzer Hara. He was fully involved and he didn't change. An example he gives in the next little bit is he says the Baal Shem Tov, for example, Daven to Hashem, that whatever meditative state he is, he should be able to give people good advice. They're going to come over to him for bracha, see the Baal Shem Tov. He wants to be able to always address people with their needs. There's actually a lot of deep people struggle with this. A lot of deep people, they go, as a deep person, you're alive. And if you're alive, you got emotions. And if you got emotions, they have roller coasters, right? So a lot of deep people struggle with the idea of like meeting people constantly. And, one time they're meeting you when you're in a good place. One time you're meeting people in not such a good place. And the idea of being constantly there for people in at least a respectful, kind, loving way. And, obviously if you have more judgments, always happy or whatever. Everyone has different, things they hold themselves accountable to. And also if they're like, deep in meditation, they shouldn't, be like annoyed when someone disturbs, deep in davening, deep in learning, deep in their work. So the Baal Shem Tov also had this desire. And I don't think it was from a struggle, from a self-conscious place where he always wanted to come across as kind, caring, and loving. But people come over to him. He's the Baal Shem Tov. He is the Nasi Adar. He is representative of a Gilui Elikus. So he wants to make a Kiddush Hashem. He wants to be there for his fellow Yidden, which are two different things. The Moshe Rabbeinu always wants to represent Hashem properly and always wants to represent the Yidden properly, right? He's literally, the Mechaber Mutza. So Baal Shem Tov would daven to Hashem that he should always be available no matter what meditative state he's in davening and learning. He should be able to meet the person and be able to give the bracha that they need or the advice that they need. So that being said, we get an insight into Yosef. Yosef was fully involved in whatever he was involved, and at the same time, it did not change him. Just like the Baal Shem Tov, whatever he was going through, he was able to meet everybody at their needs. Same to Yosef was able to meet every Gashmis Indian at their level. So Yosef's brothers come over to him and they say, Yosef, we're really sorry. We didn't, Yaakov, our father, told us to tell you to be kind to us. And Yosef says, am I instead of God? So the simple meaning of that is, hey, you guys try to mess me over and you couldn't. You think I could mess you guys over? Am I stronger than Hashem who leads everything? The Rebbe points out, Elokim in this case is Malchus of Atzilus. So you guys are living in Olam Abriya, where the world exists to some level, and you have to do a skafia, and you have to do a skafia, and you have to do some avodah to make sure that you stay kosher, you stay proper, and that's why you guys are farmers and shepherds, because you have to stay away from the world. It says, I live in Atzilus. I'm not a Tachas Elokim. I'm not lower than Malchus of Atzilus. I live in Atzilus, and therefore, everything's from Hashem. Everything is godliness. I don't fight with reality. I don't fight with you. I don't fight with anything. Everything is between me and Hashem. And being that Hashem is good, it's all good. I was actually speaking to a friend today, and he's like, there's one thing that's getting in the way of my life. It's resentment. And I'm like, okay, resentment to what? He says, to Hashem, obviously. Who else? Everything's from Hashem. So if there's any resentment, the only place to take it accountable is to Hashem. So that's a very powerful thing to say. In other words, as much as resentment you have to work out and everything, there's a certain awareness that it's all from Hashem. So Yosef, I don't think Yosef had resentment. He's a tzaddik. But Yosef had a certain awareness that it's all from Hashem, and therefore nothing could perplex him, nothing could get in his way. There was a certain awareness. And now in this godliness that Yosef lives, there's many different ways it shows. I was listening to a shir from Rav Altiel, and he was describing this level of Shem Havai, because Shem Havai comes in different areas. It's all depending what you're talking about. As a level of Haya, Hashem is here now. He's creating the past right now. He's creating the present, the future right now. So when we constantly have this in mind, that Hashem is right now creating what's going on right now, what led up to this, and where this is going, when we live in that state, we could slowly be like Yosef. We could be able to let go of all our resentment, let go of all our need to be controlled, be super involved in the world, treat everything how it's needed, and yet live at the highest levels. Now, in second, the Rebbe is saying this about Yosef, who's living in Atzilus, who's higher than his brothers. Yeah, but the Rebbe is addressing us. This Rebbe is speaking to us, and the Rebbe used this many times. In fact, he's going to use this later on the Mimer, that if he's talking to us, it obviously is applicable. How? Okay, so you have to do more work to figure out how it's applicable. But the Rebbe is letting us know that there's many, that you could be a Yosef. And there's many, many stories of people that had, their family, was snitched onto the KGB. And they were able to forgive. They were able to let go. And this is a very intense avodah, but I want to put it out there that it's there. And this mimer speaks about Taksel Kimani, living in a higher prison, in a higher place. So that was a powerful part. The Rebbe goes on to explain that whatever we said in this mimer is all fire. It's all gilui, which practically means it's not even the intense treasure that Hashem is giving us. There's something greater that Hashem is giving. So whatever we said till now, all these tools, I don't want to scare. A lot of these tools were iron, and therefore they're not the treasure. Hashem is really giving us a deeper, deeper treasure. And he says this treasure helps us be able to put up what it takes to bring Mashiach. And he says one of the things that are in the treasure is having a tzaddik. Having a tzaddik who reveals godliness. So if people ask, like, why are you cutting so much in the Rebbe? Why are you cutting so much in tzaddik? And the answer is because they are a revelation of God. Now, this doesn't only mean the miracles they do. It means every single step they do. Watching their every movement, the fact that they eat. This is all revelations of God. Why is it important? Because it's important for us to know the way we interact with food is also revealing God. It's revealing the deepest of treasures. Now the Rebbe doesn't go out to spell out the treasure. He goes on to say is the ability that we could demand that Ali One Hashem is part of the treasure. The way I understand it is the treasure is us. In other words, he goes on to say is we have a Yechida that receives from Hashem the love of Yachid. And he says all of this is to win the war. In other words, winning the war is the purpose. And we have a treasure. So experiencing your Yechida is not even the purpose. The purpose is something deeper. In other words, the king is throwing things out there so we can win the war. That means whatever he's throwing out there is not the main purpose. What's the purpose? Is us be one with Hashem, to experience that. Have a deep, deep relationship with Hashem. The treasure is us. The treasure is Hashem. The piece of us that's Hashem. Let me explain. I'm first going to share a story that will help us separate. There was one time one of the Alter Rebbe's friends came with one of his strongest chassidim. He says, this guy gets to see Eliyahu Navi every single night. So Alter Rebbe took him out the shul. He says, this guy's experiencing Zechida right now. He's experiencing Yeshida right now, which means that's obviously not Mashiach, because if that was Mashiach, everyone would have Mashiach, right? So us experiencing our Yechida is the ability to use it to reveal more godliness. In other words, Chassidus is also not the purpose. Chassidus is maybe the treasure. It's helping us reveal the treasure, but the goal is something greater. The Rebbe would say there's 5 names for neshama. One of them is Yechida. That means Yechida is not at all. Chassidus is considered Yechida. It says there's a pnimis of Torah, pnimis of the Yidden, pnimis of Hashem, and they all connect. That is all. If you want, you can maybe call it the treasure. I don't know for sure. I feel comfortable saying it's a treasure, but I have to do more research. That is all the treasure. That is not the purpose. The purpose is to be one with Hashem. That's why we're fighting. The goal is to not struggle to have Yechida. The goal is to use your Yechida to eventually be one with Hashem. What does that practically mean? I have to do more avodah to experience it more and to therefore have more words to elaborate, and hopefully we'll have it with Mashiach. I hope you enjoyed, and Atzlach Rabba. Thank you for listening.